Hello, everyone. Yeah, thank you for joining. This is Realm Runners episode 5. I am very, very ecstatic with the way the first 4 have gone. Everyone has been super awesome about it. I have some very cool Spotify stats that I've been posting. I've gotten to see a lot of the authors in here post their different the Kindle Unlimited read, everything like that. So it was a lot of fun to go into the behind the scenes of Spotify and see the stuff that's been cooking over there. And I am very happy to have a person on tonight. He was one of the first people in this little scene that I started talking to, even back in the day. The day being like a year and a half ago, but it's been a long time. And we've been in 2 blogs together so far. Both of them have been awesome. It's been a pleasure getting to know him on and off, and we are having him on. Well, the royal we, am having him on his new novella, Pawns of oh my God, I just stuttered so horribly. The new novella, The Pawns of Havoc, came out on the 29th of May. I was able to read it early, and it was awesome. We're going to talk about it more in his first book. Welcome to the stage, Mr. Dave Lawson.
Oh, sorry. I was catching up on my reading. I don't know. This might be a DNF. I'm just kind of. What do you think?
A little too foggy, I think, right?
A little foggy. No, this is a great book. Fogbound and J. Alexander. You should definitely read it if you haven't. What's up? I am Dave. I'm sorry, Pete. You said the first 4 shows were great, and I'm here to ruin things for you.
I thought you were going to say you're here to take it up a notch, which would have been a much bigger selling point.
Sorry, I'm here to take it up a notch, Pete.
Yes, there we go. We have a lot of people in the chat. We're saying hi to Alex, saying hi to Audrey, saying hi to Jasper. Oh, I clicked him and it didn't go. There it is. And Willow Wraith, our little blog over here, reluctantly for you.
Bill Adams.
Oh, they're showing out in force. But yeah, I'm very happy to have you on, man. We've been talking for quite a while now, and it's been awesome to not get to know you just as an author, but as a person. And despite what everyone says, I really value our friendship.
Does everyone say you don't value our friendship, or does everyone say that I'm just a horrible person?
I think they're implying that it's overrated, but I just want you to know I rate you perfectly.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you, Pete. I do think you are kind of estimating that we've known each other longer than we actually have, because I'm pretty sure the first time I noticed you existed was in September.
Yeah, I said it feels like years.
Whenever, I think you got my book and Lamia's. And we were like, this Pete guy is really cool. And I don't know if you'd been on Twitter in the months before that, or I just really interacted with you, but yeah. So I would say it's been less than a year, but for me, it's felt like a lifetime.
Yes, exactly. I was on Twitter beforehand, and it was just to make fun of the Jets, which is still kind of what I'm there for Twitter.
I mean, here's the deal. Until I started writing fantasy books, and everyone was talking about, I'm on Twitter. And I was like, the only Twitter account I have is a soccer account where I follow Sporting Kansas City. And then I follow, which they're absolutely horrible right now. And then so I listened to their podcast, the fan podcast would be like, we suck again. Next week, we still suck. That was my experience with Twitter, was that, and following sports games whenever I couldn't watch them live. I really only considered Twitter to be a sports app for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I made a writer Twitter, and it became my everything.
Yeah, it's wild how that
Yeah.
that takes off.
I mean, I don't know. It's not my everything, but like it became the social media that I got the most connections from. And I'd say like Instagram would be second best, but definitely Twitter has been the easiest to meet people on, which, you know, I don't know that I love some aspects of Twitter, but it has been the easiest to meet other
The
authors.
fun part on Twitter is really fun. Everything else is not great. But yeah, so yeah, like you said, we first started talking probably only like 6-7 months ago, and I'll go into the first book in a little bit, but I'm gonna pop pawns up on here because this is what we are mainly promoting tonight a little bit. I want to give props especially because as beautiful as the cover is, I mean, look at that back. Look at that back cover.
For those of you who can't read it in the chat, it says, for fans of the Silverblood Promise, Loch Lamora and the like. Not a lot of stories have lines that can be hilarious, and especially not as frequently as they come in this. Pete Barnable, SFF Insiders.
Wow. And with the audio and everything, it is and it is completely true. One of the strongest parts that I think your writing especially has taken a leap from Envoys, which was book 1 of the main series, to Pawns. The prose is fantastic, and the dialogue is very witty and on point and very sharp. I think there is a not gigantic, that because that's underselling Envoys, which I fucking loved, but a real nice leap, and it shows a lot of growth. As far as Pawns go, what made you decide to focus primarily on Cork? Because he's one of the best characters in Envoys, which we'll get into. But is that something you knew you wanted to do?
Well, so after I wrote Envoys, I kind of thought I need to take a break from. I'm not going to jump straight into book 2 because I need to take a break. I was burnt out. And so I decided I'm going to write a novella. Originally, my thought was to write a newsletter magnet type thing. But after I wrote it, I thought, no, I want to like release it as normal, but just have it sort of, it can be a magnet into the series because you don't need to have read Envoys to read this and for it to tell a complete story. It is a standalone. In fact, what I would say is that for people reading the main series, it's something that like you don't have to have read this, but it's probably going to give you a little bit more as the series goes on, because some of these characters are going to pop back in different points. Not as like the main characters, well, besides Cork, but the other ones are going to pop back in at different points. But I also kind of wanted to explore something different from Envoys and that like, so I took a different part of the world, in this case, different characters, except for the one character. And I wanted to sort of tell a more tragic story.
Which it definitely was. It was a lot darker than Envoys, but it was great tone change. It's a whole different aspect.
And I think partially, like, Envoys is book 1, and there's dark moments, but it is pretty, like, lighthearted in other moments. But my plan was never for the series to just be, like, all happy fun times. Like, there's some stuff going on that is not happy and is not fun. And, like, there are a lot of people who die in Envoys, even though, like, the main characters are being snarky with each other. What I would say is that Pawns is a more stripped down. So like the prose is more stripped down. The dialogue is more stripped down, partially because that fits Cork. Cork is not a philosopher. He is not a Corden who is going to be like, using his words and his wits to try to get what he wants out of situations.
Yeah, not as much of a schemer.
Not as much of a schemer. He is a pick up axe, hit with axe.
Yes.
But that's not to show that he is an idiot. In Envoys, you only see him from other people's perspectives, and he might seem a little bit simplistic or dumb at points. But I kind of wanted to show here that it's not so much that he's a complete idiot who with no like internal monologue who's just like walks around thinking hit with axe, but more that and that's a pretty easy way to get along with people. If you're just kind of like, hello, I'm Cork, you want a drink, like, you know, hello, just kind of, it's easy to, everyone loves someone who's just like the big jolly guy who is happy-go-lucky to some extent.
Yes, and this did a very great turn on it by getting us deeper into the emotional, you know, journey that he goes on and leads it. You know, his rationale and reasoning to becoming the person he is that we see later. As far as main characters go, I thought it was a great turn to make him from, like you said, he was very hit guy with axe, kill guy in Envoys, and the emotional depth that was able to get brought into his character in this was very nice to see. It definitely kind of enlightens you to why he is the way he is when you first get to meet him. It was a great choice to have this novella pick up and be the POV of. So yeah, that was a great way of doing it.
Yeah, one thing that I wanted to do was, so like the big thing that I really try to do with my characters is just get into their minds and kind of really try to make them complete, well-rounded characters that are not just like, here is the trope character here is trope character here, they do what trope character is supposed to do, but like kind of trying to play on some of those aspects to where like Corden definitely has some like bard and rogue tropes to him, but he is not only a bard. He has some things underneath it that as the book goes on, he shows. Jen is not only about swinging big swords. Like, she has more depth than that. Cork is not just about his axe. Like, there are some stories, and especially movies, where you get like the characters fall into these exact tropes and they really don't do anything beyond the trope. And I'm all about characters. When I read, I want to fall in love with the characters. And when I write, I want it to be about the characters. And I like plot. And my books have a plot. But for me, the focus is always going to be on the characters. And so I would say, like, my books are character focused. They're not slow paced. Like, they're medium and sometimes fast paced, but they're character focused in that I'm never just being like, all right, we're going to do a bunch of action for the plot for the next 60 pages and then have more action for the plot. Like, my big focus is on when there is plot stuff, how is it affecting the characters? How are they growing? How are they changing? Like, what is it saying about the characters? To where in general, I really just try to have fun with my writing. And like, I love the snarky comments and I enjoy my characters. I have a lot of fun doing it, to where I wouldn't say that while I'm sitting there, I'm thinking like, what is the philosophy of this character? What should I need to get into his head? And like, I'm mostly just kind of like, that's a funny line. That's a funny line. Oh, but like, then when I go back, I really try to flesh out the whole scene and the characters to really like make some of that stuff happen. If you read my first drafts, it's a lot of dialogue, snark. Because that's stuff that's easiest for me to write, so I write it first.
Mm-hmm.
And then I fill in the other parts around it.
Yes, and the snark is very apparent in the first book, Envoys of War, shown here. And I feel like, yeah, and shown there too. And I had my copy, I was just showing off, and shown here. But the snark is what I think is definitely the strongest point of Envoys, because like you said, it's a lot of fun to read it, and I can't even imagine just how you go through the process of writing it, because there's so much good stuff there that throughout the entire time I would be laughing and having a great time. I kind of have a hard time narrowing down what snark I wanted to keep and what I didn't want. It was that kind of a little more challenging than most, because it can't just be joke after joke after joke. And I thought that you did a awesome job of getting it across without it being shoehorned in. Like everything was there and funny, and not, oh God, okay, like we get it. They're snarky. It was
what
like,
I would
well
say
done.
is that I wasn't trying to write a comedy novel. And I think I had a whole like live stream where I talked with Ed Crocker and Joe Byrne and Sean O'Boyle about writing humor. And a lot of times, if you are trying to write a humorous book, and like the focus is this is going to be funny, what happens is a lot of it's forced.
Mm-hmm.
I really struggle to read books that are like written as comedy novels, because a lot of times they're kind of surface level, and it's mostly jokes, and some of the jokes hit and some of the jokes don't. It's the same with a comedy movie. There's a reason why a sitcom is 22 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because a little more than 22 minutes and you start losing focus on it, because it is the same little comedy bits over and over and over again. And so for me, my focus was always on wit. So I have witty characters who are being witty to each other, but the events that are occurring in the world are not funny.
No, they're really not.
Like, there are so many really serious, dramatic things happening to these characters. And while Corden always has a quip and a witty remark, like, it's happening while there also are serious stakes up against them. And I feel like the problem with a lot of comedy novels and comedy in general is either the lack of stakes or the feeling that it's just goofy fun and nothing's actually bad going to happen. And sometimes it is a struggle to get through something that is just a comedy. And so for me, I wouldn't say I don't write comedy books. I wouldn't say that I don't write just like humorous fantasy all by itself, even though it's in that category on Amazon, because there aren't that many categories, and that's the one that like fits better than some of the others. But like, my thing here is that I would say it is a witty fantasy novel. It is a snarky fantasy novel. And so I'll use those terms because I feel like it better suits like what's happening with the characters, and that it is not just a comedy.
No,
and Pond,
it's way more. Yeah.
I feel like is just as funny. Just in that case, I have the same wit and the same humor, and I just like made the stakes are just as high, but I just said, like, those moments in Envoys where maybe someone escaped with only some injuries. Maybe we'll
Maybe
go
take it up a notch
here. Take it up a notch. And so my thing is, in general, I write books that there are funny characters. There's witty dialogue, but I'm not setting out to write a comedy book. And so that's kind of my thought on it. And the thing is that if someone says it's a comedy and I love it, it's hilarious, I'm not going to be like, no, it's not a comedy. You sit down and shut up. Like, I'm going to be like, yeah, there is a lot of funny stuff in there. I agree. Because there's some comedy moments. I wouldn't consider it a comedy novel just because I feel like there's a lot of serious stuff in there as well.
Yes, I think that's why, if anything, it shines brighter, because the stakes are, like you said, so high, and the backdrop is so intense that the ability you have to make it seem like, oh, nice, is like, I think that's more of a testament to your abilities. And especially, like you said, Pawns is pretty much, not pretty much, but it has the same level of snark as Envoys, but the story and the baseline is much darker. The jump off point of Pawns, without doing any spoilers or anything, Cork's mom is sick, and the win, which I wanted to get into because I thought the idea of that the further they go away and the longer they stay away from their home island, the more sick they get, was a really cool way of driving the plot of this story. The people that come over, bless up Mama Win, the people, the people that come over that really turn Cork onto this task in return for helping his mom is kind of a darker jump off point, because it's like not blackmail essentially, but it's like, your mom is, fucking dying, and if this is how we are going to help her, this is what you're going to do for us.
And like a lot of that's in the blurb. So if someone looks on Goodreads, they're seeing like Cork is hired by the Win, his sort of former countrymen, who hire him to travel and destroy a convoy, leaving one survivor. And he takes the job because they promise that if he does it, they will heal his mother. And so for that whole thing, like, in Envoys, I had said Cork's mom was sick, but I had not like given any details because Cork just like mentions it. But I wrote a short story for the Secret Scribes anthology, which is going to come out at some point. Alex.
I think we'll be talking about that later in the month.
No, it's not Alex. But basically, I wrote this short story, and a lot of some of the ideas that I came up with were things where, like, Audrey, who's in the chat, would be asking me all of these questions about the world, and I'd be like, I have no idea. Let's make something up that fits that. And I think I kind of came up with the idea that basically the Win, and you don't get the full aspect of it here, like, and it still hasn't been revealed exactly why, but basically if they leave the island for too long, there's this sickness that can really only be healed by going back to the island. And so Cork's mom left the island, and she is really, really sick. There's questions as to Cork was born on the Isle. Why is he not sick? And we'll get into that. That will show up a little bit later on.
Keep reading and find out.
Yeah, you'll find out. But in that little short story, which is called Kadri's Penance, And basically the main character is a fan fiction version of Audrey named Kadri, who is a cook on the Isle, and it's about as cozy as the wind can get. And I had a lot of fun writing that short story, but it also kind of helped me build out some of the background of the world. So then it that helped me with, then I had written some of Pawns and kind of flamed out on it because I couldn't. I'd written an ending that I did not like, and I didn't really know what to do. And so I wrote that short story. And after that, I kind of had a little bit of a light bulb moment and went back and revised the first half a little bit, completely rewrote the second half of the book. Completely different second half of the book. And like, I really, really like the second half of the book now. Like, I feel like it is what I wanted to do with the story. And like, it's brutal and just like dark, but also I feel like there is some hope. And I was talking on Twitter the other day. I was talking on Rowdy's show the other day about how I struggle with grimdark sometimes because there's so much grimness, and I need hope, and I need some, like, I need at least a bittersweet kind of ending. I don't want an ending where everyone dies. Like, those, I'm just like, what's the point? And I know that there are some great stories that do that, but for me, that's like, it's kind of a disappointing ending.
I can definitely see
that's just me. That's my personal opinion on it. But I just feel like if everyone dies at the end, I have a what's the point feeling about it.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes a lot of sense. And it kind of the different ways that that's just so interesting that you said that you kind of rewrote the whole second half, because, you know, the second half of it is really where the two main side characters in Pawns, who are Arabella and Nessa, two insanely strong side characters, especially for a novella. They're both awesome. I think Arabella almost stole the show. I'm sure I'm pronouncing it
She's
wrong.
My favorite character. I love Cork too, but
Cork
Arabella is just right above him on the, just like, she was so fun to write. And I think I was talking to Bill about this, but Arabella is kind of like if Corden was sweeter, kinder, less confident, and maybe slightly more like observant of what other people were thinking.
Yeah, they were both awesome. And
then Nessa was just so fun to write because she's just a murderous, angry person all the time.
Yeah. Every time she talked, it was just like, oh boy. Like, I feel that this is not going to end well. But, you know, I thought the second half was awesome as well. And it was also interesting to see the romance subplot kind of take hold in there between those two, a little slow developing and, you know, not 100% solidified. So hopefully we get to see a little bit more of that. But
I will tell you that some characters from this one are going to pop up in book 2.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, that's awesome. And it that took another turn where I think it showed great promise in the way that you're writing, because also one of the cool things I thought about Envoys was Jen, who is an amazing character as well, does not care for romance. And it was like, not even at all. And
that's one of the things. So some people that I am very close with are asexual, aromantic. So aro-ace, you can use that term to kind of be like they are asexual and aromantic. And I wanted to kind of give them a character who was the main character, who was in that spectrum and was not interested in romance with anyone at all, really, and like was focused on, you know, she loves her friends, she loves animals, she loves her sword, but just like romance is not something that is what she cares about. And for me, that's something that you don't see very often in a lot of books, because the main character usually has some kind of romance.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a male main character and a female main character, they have some kind of romance or some kind of like will they, won't they thing. I did have like one or two reviewers who wished that there was a romance between Corden and Jen, and I was just like, did you read the book?
No, that would never have ended well. It never would have ended well. It wouldn't have worked well. It wouldn't have been fun to read. Like the way that was just done was perfect.
But like that was a situation of I wanted to try to give some of those people, some of my friends and family members, a voice, where of like a character that maybe often gets sort of shunted off as a side character or something like that. And then, Rach, R.A. Sandpiper, was convinced that Tobias and Corden were enemies to lovers. And so she still brings that up all the time. And then Bill, of course, brings that up all the time as well.
Maybe in part two.
They're enemies to still enemies. That's what I say in marketing. But in this one, I always am going to have a little bit of romance in my stories, and partially it's because I like romance. I grew up, I studied romantic comedies in college, like 30s, 40s, 50s screwball romantic comedies, and they were very influential on my writing and what I enjoy. There's a lot of very quick back and forth bantery dialogue, a lot of sort of like the characters they're not enemies, they're just kind of rivals who think the other one's really annoying, and they're sort of put together, and after bickering for a little while they kind of realize maybe there's some feelings there type situation. I also love, like, my mom, Jane Austen is her favorite. Growing up, we watched all of the different adaptations of all of the Jane Austen novels. So like every version of Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, Emma. And I read all of those as well because they're my mom's favorite books. And they're fantastic. Like the way that she writes about her characters, there's a lot less dialogue in those than in the movies, but like the dialogue she writes is so good and so like witty, and a lot of times kind of cuttingly witty. And like that's one of those things that for me, that's what I love. And so I'm always going to have a little bit of romance and sort of that somewhere in the stories, because also if you think about life for a lot of people, what are the three main things people care about? Family, money, romance. And you could change money out for something different, but come on. Money's probably in that list somewhere.
It's high.
Yeah, it's like family, and like pets would go under family, like money, which would go with like their job and everything, and then romance. Those are kind of the main things that people are focused on, to where if I'm writing books with no romance whatsoever, at some point I'm kind of like, come on.
You're missing some stakes in there.
And that's no shade on someone who doesn't have any romance in their books, because I mean, it's not like romance happens every second of every day. But I like it, and I'm always going to have it.
Yeah, no, that's a very interesting way of thinking about it, because it's something I was going to ask also, where it was, do you bring any personal things into your stories? But that was almost a perfect answer that led into that.
I mean, the other aspect would be like, I love animals, to where Jen's love of animals and love of her friends and family is very much similar to how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Corden's snarky sense of humor and banteriness is similar to my sense of humor. I am very different from Corden when it comes to like actions and some of those aspects. Yeah. But I would say he and I have a similar sense of humor. So I'm kind of, Jen and Corden are sort of like, if you put aspects of the two of them together, they could be similar to me. Probably of the characters in my books, the one that is the most similar to me overall is probably Arabella. Just because she's kind of unconfident, but witty and kind of unsure what to do a lot of times, but also has sometimes like this confidence that is misplaced while also being very unsure. And I'd say like that kind of describes me, and that there will be times where I'm like, I'm so awesome. Yeah. Confidence. And then like an hour later, I'm like, oh my God, everyone hates me. Why did I do that? I should have gone. No
My world's collapsing.
Yeah, so it's like I go in kind of these waves of that, kind of like I think how Arabella does to some extent. So of the characters, I'd say she's probably the one that is like the most me, but in general, like none of them are exactly me. But it's kind of whenever you are writing, aspects of you are going to come out into characters, even if you try not to. Look at like Solanine from Bill's series, like that's Bill. You know, like exactly, like it happens. Eamon from Blood, the Binding Tenets, it's Greg.
Like, but I like Greg. Eamon's really annoying.
Me too. No, I think like Lynn probably from that has a lot of Greg in him, because like when you're writing, you are going to put aspects of you in your stuff without even really thinking about
it. Yeah, no, for sure.
We were talking about like how I did a lot of like snarky stuff without making things just become comedy. And I meant to mention like some of the books, like Lies of Locke Lamora, I think is a great example of a book that is so freaking funny. And then there are some terrible things that happen in that book. But oh my God, you're laughing like 2 chapters later.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly why that the guy who wrote the blurb on the back, that was perfect and really a testament to you.
And like another example, this is one that I think it came out this year. You and I have both read it. I think Ed did a fantastic job with this book. Another example of like, it is so funny. And yeah, it's not like a funny world, and the things that are happening to the characters aren't funny.
No, great characters in a horrendous world.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I mean, no one would want to live in my world. Like, it is not a very fun world. Like, yeah, I want to go live in this world where like, oh my God, there's wars and people are dying everywhere, and like mages can kill you and with a flick of a finger. Like,
that's what I was about to say next, because Tobias we haven't mentioned yet, and the magic aspect very undersold in that book. I thought that hopefully gets much more delved into, but he has the ability to control water, and not just this is a pail of water, I'm going to turn it into an icicle and kill you. He can manipulate blood, like any molecule of it.
Basically anything with water in it.
Yeah, and that was, again, it goes back to being like one of those horrible things where, you start to see what he can do with it as the bad guy for portions of that book. And it is brutal, very gruesome and awesome.
There's a great part in that where a character basically has their insides torn out by ice chunk, like ice forms inside of them and just like tear their intestines out. Like, it's a great moment, one of my favorites. And like, there's a lot of things like that. And the thing about Tobias is that he's not like a bad man, but he's driven by revenge. And then you've got some other characters who are more bad man. And then the Wind, who are just like overpowered compared to the other mages because of some of those things that will be revealed as things go on as to why they're able to enhance themselves so more than everyone else. But like some of the things they can do are pretty horrifying. And the thing is, like, are the Wynn evil? I mean, sure.
Depends. Yeah.
Depends on the situation. Are the Rosenfellian mages all evil?
Maybe.
I mean, a few of them are.
Yeah.
But like book 2 is going to be focusing more on, like, I think there's going to be a lot more mage stuff, because if you've read the end of Envoys, there is a little bit of a lead as to what part of the plot of book 2 is going to be. And basically this book, Pawns of Havoc, the mages were more in the background because it wasn't a fight between, there weren't any mages in the fight. The Wynn were just kind of the people pulling the strings behind the situation. So for this, it was a lot more of like in general, I'm always going to write stories that are more small conflict, character focused. My characters are not going to be the ones like charging and killing the like Dark Lord and saving the day. They are not the heroes. There is no hero's journey. They are normal people doing what they have to do to help people they care about.
Yes. There was a did you ever see the movie 3:10 to Yuma with Russell Crowe and Christian Bale?
Have seen, I believe that was based on another movie, and I'm pretty sure, or there was a movie that was very similar to it.
I think it was a remake, technically.
Was it a remake?
The original,
I've seen the original movie. I haven't seen the Russell Crowe one.
Yeah, there's a line in there where something happens with one of the guys is taunting Russell Crowe, and Russell Crowe just ends up fucking him up because he's Russell Crowe, and he just kills this guy and just goes, "Even bad men love their mama." And that was like such a cork line. That was like, as soon as I started reading it, I was just like, this is just a guy. Like that this is his reality and what he has to do to, like you just said, take care of the person that he loves. And, you know, it becomes I mean, sorry, like this is what has to get
could be done. A Western if you took Cork and they wrote like him and his people and they had their guns and they basically go out to take down like a wagon train. Like it could be a Western really easily in terms of the story, because there's really not any magic in the fight.
Yeah.
In the like the characters actually interacting with each other. Like you could make it a Western really easily.
Yeah.
Envoys would be a little bit harder because there is a lot more magic, because you've got more mage characters who are involved in the conflict. But also the area where they are in Pawns is maybe not quite as much of a mage stronghold area of the world. So it makes sense that it's not like full of mages attacking all the time or anything. Yeah, but Bill had asked, does Corden know there are no heroes? The thing is that I feel like Corden, I don't know if he thinks that he's a hero, but I think he definitely thinks that he's like going to be doing what's best for the greater good and everything like that. But I don't know if he realizes this, but probably nothing he does is really going to make that big of a difference.
He has some main character energy.
he definitely thinks, like, there's an amazing moment in Envoys that I love that I'm going to have to come back to in later books, where he's like, you know, I could run a mercenary company. This would be awesome. Like, I'm so good at this. And it's just like, oh my God, dude, you have no clue what you're talking about. Just because you convinced a few people to do something does not mean that you should be in charge of them.
Yeah.
But like little things like that, where he's overly confident about things. But that's part of his personality. That's his biggest hamartia. What's a hamartia, Pete? This is my English lesson.
I was about to ask. I have no idea. I was
Fatal
going to see
flaw.
if I could Google that.
Tragic flaw, in film they usually call it a fatal flaw. Basically, his tragic flaw, or like the personality trait that leads to his downfall, would be, I don't know, it's excessive pride, which is hubris to some extent, but I think it's more like excessive confidence in his ability bravado. To like talk his way out of situations. Overconfidence in his plans,
linguistic
his ability to like be smarter than others.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like,
yeah, he tries to think like 3 steps ahead, and then is just like, get shot down.
In general, you want all of your characters to have a fatal flaw, something that, you know, it doesn't have to actually kill them, but they have like that defect that is their greatest weakness. And like, if your characters don't have any weaknesses, it gets to be like they are too strong. They're overpowered to the point where nothing can really happen to them because they're too powerful. And that can happen sometimes with superheroes, where like there's no way to actually defeat them, so they, you know, do what they want. But in general, you want, like, characters need, like, I love to give my characters a bunch of flaws because I feel like that's what people are like.
Yeah, it's much more real. It's fun to read about. No one wants to see something, like you said, where it's just like they're good at everything. Like, no one's good at everything. Most people aren't amazing at anything. So it's like, you know, it's fun to read about.
Like, I know Corden has been like the most polarizing character because there are people who love him and people who think he's annoying. And then people who think like at the beginning they can't stand him, but as the book goes on, he grows. And it's kind of one of those things where, in general, my thought is, and I've said this and people have said the same thing back to me, of like, if people are feeling that strongly about your character, you're doing something right. And for me, I love him. I think he's likable. I think he definitely is a lot more likable as the book goes on. At the beginning, I don't hate him, but he's supposed to be very, very flawed, and he does sort of make some changes as things go on. I think with Cork, it's a situation of he knows what he has to do. We haven't really talked that much about Pons, but like the whole idea of like, how far is he going to go to save his mom? Like, is he going to kill a bunch of people to save her? Like, Pete, what would you do to save your family?
Probably kill a bunch of fucking people.
I mean, it's one of those things where, like, if it was you can either kill these people you don't know or your family will die. I think most people are probably choosing family over people they don't know. And that doesn't make all of those people bad people. It's just like, when you're in this really horrible situation, like, what are you going to choose, the people you know or these other people you don't really know? And then for someone like Arabella, she's like, oh my God, we can't do this. These poor people. And Cork's like, yep.
Yeah. Is
anyway.
What it is. Yeah. That's what, like that, the meme where it's just like, oh no, moving on.
Like, what's he going to do? Like, yeah, you're right. We can't do this. I guess I'll just go let my mom die.
Yeah, exactly. Well, she had a good run. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Like, think about Liam Neeson in Taken. If there had been a thing in here like, your daughter will die if you don't kill 20 people. He's walking outside of his house and immediately, like, basically, Cork's not a hero. He's a man. And like, there's one of my favorite lines in the book, and I'm actually, if I can find it, I'm going to read it.
Please do, because now I need to know.
I mean, it's probably one of my favorites. You're a God's damned hero. No, Quark snapped. I'm just a man.
It says it all.
Like right there,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that describes Quark in the novel. Like, he's not a hero. He's just a man who is stuck in a horrible situation.
Mm-hmm.
And he has to do something about it. Like, he can't just sit there and Hamlet around. To use some Shakespearean. So Shakespeare, his characters always had hamartia. And Hamlet's hamartia was that he had this indecision to act. And he just waits around and waits around and waits around until it's too late. And when he finally does act, his girlfriend kills herself and he stabs her dad on accident. And like, basically, if he had done something about it 2 acts earlier, maybe it could have worked. But he spends so much time being like, I don't know what to do. And like, that's a situation of Quark doesn't have the luxury to do that, because he can't be like, hey guys, I need to think this through for a little while. They're like, okay, bye.
Yeah, it's like, let me sleep on it. Like, there's no anything of it. I think that's why I said at the beginning where I feel like the writing was such a step up in this, because it does boil down to that aspect where he's just a guy doing what he has to do to, save his mom. That is his story, but you do such a great job of getting into the emotions that he feels throughout it. Like, even just that one line, it's almost like annoyance that someone was like, wow, like, you're my hero. And he's like, no. But the behind the scenes of everything and reading about his journey throughout that book, it's much more than just, I am not a hero. I'm not a hero. I'm not, like, it's not that. And you do a great job of getting into his head and express, kind of getting the emotions across of, he feels bad about doing this stuff. Like, there are times along the way where it's like, I really wish that the path wasn't what I'm on right now. And that, I feel like, was almost, not that you're underselling yourself, but that it is very impressive to take a person who has such a black and white, I need to do this to save this person, and have that spectrum of, I know this isn't right, to, I'm gonna fucking do it anyway, and everywhere in between. And it's in a novella, like, this wasn't hundreds and hundreds of pages. It's a in out short story, and the journey that all of the characters go on through it, you become so invested of them. And I think it's really an amazing job. I loved this.
Thank you.
And I saw something you posted on Twitter as well, which is, this is just a cool little factoid, because it's one of the Amazon lists where it's like, I think, a under 2 hour read, which sounds like a little nitpicky, but not when you start really.
Well, so the aspect here, that was like, I was number 14 on the under 2 hour reads. And then when I looked that evening, they just put me in dark fantasy and dark fantasy horror. And I was no longer in the 2 hour reads. And I was like, and I talked to Bill about this, and I was like, Bill, what category can I be in? Yes, it's dark, but it's not horror. Like, I hate, but like, that's what Amazon, if it's dark, if you have dark fantasy, they put you in dark fantasy horror, to where, like, right now it is in the dark. Greg's books are in dark fantasy horror. Like, it's just the category Amazon puts you in. And like Pawns, like Envoys, is in humorous fantasy, because while it is not just a comedy, there's I felt like that fit better than some of the other ones. I don't want to do just like epic fantasy, because that's kind of generic. But like Pawns is definitely a darker story, but it's not grimdark. It's not that like dark fantasy horror type vibe. It is a darker story with more like moral ambiguity, but it's not grimdark. I'm never like, I think Rach had said something along the lines of like, oh my gosh, it's so dark. And Bill was like, it's dark for a Dave story. So I refer to it, my genre is now called Dave Dark.
Dave Dark has a good one. Or Grim Dave.
Grim Dave. I think that's what I actually said before. Grim Dave. Which is like, for me, it's a pretty grim story.
Yeah.
For like ZB Steel, it's like a happy walk in the park.
Yeah, this was the lighthearted character backstory.
This would be this is ZB's like lighthearted character, and for me, it's like the dark, emotional damage character. He's like, oh, that was such a fun little happy story, and it's like,
remember when they they were going to let his mom die? With all of these other people that we're mentioning, what do you think is one of the more unique stories that you have, book, novella, whatever it is, that you've read recently? Because we're tossing out some names on here that put out gold as well. What's something that you've read recently where it was like, this kind of like knocked my, I was going to say blew my hair back, but sorry.
Wow. Okay, I see how it is.
It says bald author right there.
I am indeed a bald author. Well, I'm going to answer with two because I'm really bad at answering with one on questions like this. And I wouldn't say that these might not be books where it's like everything about them was completely new and different from everything ever again. But for me, they kind of blew me away. The first one is going to be, I'm going to answer the whole series here, but the Lotland series by Jonathan French, the first book being The Grey Bastards, which won the Spiffbo 2 or 3, and then got picked up and traditionally published. And it's like, I absolutely loved this series. It is crass, violent. It's set in like, the characters are half orcs that ride these giant hogs, and people refer to it as like Sons of Anarchy in fantasy.
Oh, that's cool.
But they're like a half orc hog rider like bands in this kind of lawless land that the humans have sent all of the half orcs to live there, and along with some of the other creatures. And like, there's some very dark stuff in the background. There's not really like sexual assault, rape, stuff like that on the page, but there's a lot of like in the background, the way that all of these half orcs have been created are from like orc raids into the settlements over time.
Yeah, so like, kind of implied.
Like, it's very much like stated that that's what has happened, etc. But like, it's not something where you are just like, there's not a bunch of on page sexual violence. There is, the characters are incredibly crass. If you think about it, if you get a bunch of dudes together who are like motorcycle dudes together, what are they talking like?
Yeah.
To where like, I thought it was a really, really, really well done world. And like, the funny thing about it is that while it's dark, you really like, you fall in love with these characters. There's 3 of them: Jackal, Fetch, and Oates. And book 1, I know, got some criticism because people thought like the female characters didn't have enough agency. But like, book 2 is from the perspective of Fetch, who is the female character, and she basically is like, of the 3, the one that is the most like logical and powerful and kind of takes over to some extent, to where like, I felt like the author did a really good job in this incredibly male dominated like society of showing some female characters that were able to have agency. But like, it's definitely a book that's not going to be for everyone, but it's one that like, that whole series blew me away.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
And then I'm going to say a book I just finished, which And he's done this to me now twice, but Tim Carter, who wrote Major Domo and he wrote Jester, and he writes funny books. Like, his books are funny, but oh my God, the emotional punch that you don't you don't expect it at all in Major Domo. And it's like, oh, this is a funny story about a kobold Major Domo for like an evil Dark Lord. And it's like, no, it's a story about dealing with an aging father with Alzheimer's.
Oh, wow.
And it's like the emotional gut punch just like hits you and you're like, oh my God. And like it won the Sphinx novella competition this year. And it's a fantastic book. And Jester's kind of the same way. It starts out, the main character is a goblin latrine slave who wipes up poop at the beginning. And you're reading, it's like, okay, you know, it's a comedy book, etc. And then like things go on and there's some like the emotional connections you get to these characters and like you fall in love with the characters and like the situations. And that one, it's really a book about friendship. And like, even through these really difficult times, like these people who are able to be friends from different walks of life and everything like that. And it hit me hard again. And it's like, these are funny books with a super deep emotional like resonance to them. And that's something like, I'm always going to love that kind of book. And another one like that is Spricket the Bard by Sean O'Boyle. Where you start reading it, first like 60 pages, you're like, this is a funny book. This is full of whimsy and funny. And then it's like, oh my God, Spricket's backstory. I'm emotionally damaged now. But it's still funny. Like, some of the, like, these are all fantastic books that I've read this year. And like, just, yeah, really, really good.
No, those were all good recommendations. I think I actually have.
I don't think you've read any of those, right?
I haven't, so that was like a home run of recommendations.
Well, I didn't want to be like, you know, The Whisper That Replaced God by Tim Wolfe and like, you know, ZBC. Like, yes, but you already have read those books, and they're great too. But like, I wanted to talk about some ones that I figured you and maybe some people in the chat might not have read either, because if you're watching a Willow Wraith Press stream, you might have read some of the Willow Wraith Press authors already.
Yeah, it stands to reason that. So I definitely appreciate those for sure. As far as other stuff go, and before we joined the stream together, we were talking about video games. I'm going to disappoint Greg when he rewatches this, but I have not played Expedition 33 in quite a little bit. I know the story is amazing. I know the graphics are blah, 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 blah. It's amazing. But we were talking Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and it's pretty, I guess, telling that a lot of authors and people that I know who write such amazing stuff would really love RPG games where the dialogue makes such a difference to the way that the game goes. What other games besides, and I want to hear your thoughts on that as well, because that was interesting when we were talking, but what other games, movies, stuff like that are kind of the things that you like getting lost in?
So what I was saying about Assassin's Creed Odyssey is that it is my favorite Assassin's Creed game. And I will say that to people and they'll be just like shocked and offended because they're like, it's not even a real Assassin's Creed game, because the focus is not as much on sneaking around and assassinating and parkour, even though that is still an aspect. But for me, it's my favorite because it is an open world RPG. There are dialogue choices. There are, based on the things you do, different choices within the world as like different things that happen based on your choices. And that's something I love more than anything else. Some of my favorite other games, the Mass Effect series and the Dragon Age series from BioWare. Just once again, you give me dialogue choices where what I say changes what happens in the story. And like like I'm ready to go with that every single time. I would say I love Mass Effect, but Mass Effect definitely has less that you can change, but it's just such a great series on its own that like I still love it. Like Dragon Age, there's so much like based on what you do, different things change. The best one of all is Witcher 3.
Which I
Witcher 2 is a
100%
good
agree
game,
with.
and it has a lot of great like aspects to it. The combat's not very good in Witcher 2. And there's some aspects like that that kind of make it a little bit of a slog to get through compared to some other like newer type games. I'm talking about new games with my Xbox One that can't play any of the new games. So like I'm still over here playing games that are you can play on this system. But like Witcher 3, I think is the best overall game. I'm going to have to get a new system. My wife just gave me a dirty look. I'm going to have to get a new system before Witcher 4 so that I can play that because, oh my God.
Yeah.
Also, I need to play Baldur's Gate 3 because I played 1 and 2 back many years ago, but I haven't. My system's not good enough and my computer's not good enough to actually play the system. And like my internet's not good enough to do the like cloud gaming. And she just rolled her eyes at me. I'm putting myself in the
Let him get an Xbox. I'll buy 2 books.
Priority 1 is new house, not Xbox. And that's
okay, I'm not gonna argue with her.
So yeah, like video games, I love the ones where there's a lot of dialogue choices and basically based on what you do, the story changes. I love D&D as well for similar reasons. Is like for me, it's all about the role play and the banter and the like. I just try to cause as much chaos as possible for my poor DM, and it's just like that's what's fun. I love it. Audrey, if she's still here, can attest to that because we played D&D together for a while. And then movie-wise, I love the Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves movie.
Dude, that movie was amazing.
It was so good. And like I didn't really know that I expected it to be that good. And then it was really, really good. I like Marvel movies. There are definitely some that are better than others, but I like them as a whole. But most of my favorite movies are from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. I love a lot of classic Westerns, John Wayne, Jimmy Stewart. I love a lot of 30s and 40s comedies, which is like the screwball back and forth, constant banter. And just like they talk so fast back and forth the whole time. Like, and it's just chaos in the best possible way. So like I grew up watching a lot of those. I studied them. I studied film in college as like a minor. Well, I was also, I wrote 2 screenplays. They're both mafia screenplays, mafia comedy screenplays. They were indeed written.
They are things.
And I was kind of like, oh, there's some funny parts, but I have improved my craft.
Yeah, I would say so. Not reading them, but just in general, we'll go with that. Maybe you rip some
21-year-old Dave to 40-year-old Dave.
Rip some scenes out of there, throw them in a fantasy world, and you could still use the highlights of it.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably make that happen. One was called Regular Fish, and it was about a guy who was a PI who goes undercover at a fish, like an aquarium store that is a front for the mafia, and he pretends to be like a fish expert even though he knows nothing about fish, and like it was hilarious.
The premise is there.
And then the other one was about a video game store guy who is just trying to like get his girlfriend to like him, but then like all of these mobsters like take the store hostage, and there's this that was called Friends and Hostages, but
a working title.
So my wife is saying I had a play that was performed. Like I wrote a lot of plays as well too in high school, especially. And I had a play that won. I got second place in a contest and was performed at a local theater.
That's awesome.
It was a spy spoof play called The Eggplant Deception, where like there were these fried eggplants that had bombs inside of them, and when you fried them, they exploded. It was terrorism, like Dave Lawson telling you what a guy.
No. Or did you write the first screenplay just so when someone dies, you could say they're sleeping with the fishes?
I mean, I definitely. So that was the second one I wrote. So I took screenwriting, screenwriting 1 and advanced screenwriting in college. And I wrote that we had to write a 30-minute short film for 1 and then a full-length film for 2. So the fish one was my full length.
That's good.
So it had a lot more to it. It was 140 pages because each page is a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the other one was 30 pages because each page is a minute. Like a 30-minute film versus a 2-hour and 15-minute mafia film. And there was a lot more to it, but that was the main plot. I've also written some short stories about Big Bird.
I think that was what was just asked.
Well, do you know this story?
No.
So on Chris, the Bearded Book Beast, whenever I was going live with him the first time, I posted a GIF of Big Bird riding a carriage, and it says "We ride at dawn," and he was
Yes,
"Oh my God, no! I have a fear of Big Bird." So I did what you do in situations like this, and I wrote a story about Big Bird rizzing up Chris.
That could be in your. You should have a compilation story book come out because I think you were writing a romantasy about me.
Oh yeah, I've written the first actually, I can read that live. Let me pull that up. Let me see if I can find it, and I'll read that live on here today. But so I wrote a second one about Big Bird for this last stream that I did with Chris, and that one, it was Chris and Big Bird were now best friends, and they were having an Anchorman style rumble with all the other booktubers and murdering them. So Rowdy and Already Overbooked and some other guys all got just murdered by Chris
poor
and
guys.
In that story. So this is called Scales of Passion. That time I read a dragon smut book and became a dragon shifter by Pete Barnable. Pete needed more. More dragons. More glorious miscommunication and enemies to lovers' goodness. More. He felt incomplete. Alone. He wouldn't ever be whole. He just finished binging Fourth Wing, and all he could think about was dragon. Thick, veiny wings flapping as they soared regally across the sky on the way to their bonded partners to, strengthen those bonds. God, I'd kill to be a dragon, he thought. From across the room, his wife glared at him. Pete, would you stop breathing so loudly? I'm trying to watch Love Island. Pete hadn't realized he was breathing differently than normal. Sorry, babe, he said. His voice was lower than usual, with a rumble he'd never noticed before. Seriously, you were panting. I was reading about dragons. Pete smiled. His wife was going to love this book. So, Violet, she isn't like the other girls. She's small, she's weak, and she's famous. And then she meets Zayden and, that's nice, dear. His wife stared glassy-eyed at the oiled chest of a particularly buff Love Island contestant. And that's where you just have to choose your own ending, because that's where the story ends for right now.
I'm more annoyed that you wrote pawns instead of chapter 2.
I can try to write, Pete, just for you. I do need to ask your wife if you can write in the chat, what is your least favorite thing about Pete?
No. This has been a great time.
I need to know your least favorite thing so I can put that in the story. PG-13, least favorite.
PG-13. We'll see if she responds in due time. Otherwise, I'll pass it along to you regardless. Oh my God. I will pay for that audiobook.
I mean, the thing is that, like, I don't know that I would be a professional audiobook narrator, but I have fun doing it. And if I had, like, all of the equipment, I would at least, like, do better silly, like, audio stuff of my own, like, short stuff. I don't want to ever do the recording of, like, full novels and stuff. That's way too much. But, like, it would be fun to do that. I just don't have any of the equipment, and the editing software, I don't know how to use it. I have the acting background.
Yeah, the chops are there.
And, like, but yeah, just the other side, no real knowledge where I'm never going to do that, but it's fun to mess around with it. So snoring, I guess Pete's going to have to dream about some dragons. Anyone in the chat who's read Fourth Wing, there's a moment where Violet and Xaden come together and they're, like, talking, and they're both feeling kind of weird because they're bonded to these dragons that are bonded to one another, and those dragons are bonding.
They bond hard.
Pete will probably be snoring because he'll be dreaming of bonding
dragons.
Yeah, bonding dragons. You know,
I was gonna say, because I have a tendency to end shows horribly. I think this is as perfect as an ending as ever, because I don't know if anything else I can ask or you can ask me will top that dramatic reading. That was outlandish. Like, I know I've read it before, but just hearing it, like, words come to life.
Just for you, Pete.
And I appreciate it more than ever. This is what 7 months of friendship will get, dragon erotica. But yeah, dude, I very much appreciate you coming on, and you know, I look forward to the next 7 months, even though it feels like it's been years.
Yeah, thanks you so much for having me. Anyone in the chat, if you don't have these books yet, you can get them on the Amazon, on my website for signed copies. This one is available as an audiobook if that's the way you consume your books. This one will be an audiobook later on this year. This one here, if anyone, like Pete has said he's going to buy a copy because his name is on the back. So far, he hasn't done that.
I need it.
Basically, like, if you've always wanted to have a book with Pete's name on the back of it, you can buy this book and you can have Pete's name for all of eternity. So, yeah, buy my books, read other books by awesome indie authors, rate, review, and tell those authors how awesome their books are and your favorite parts about them. And most importantly, never let Pete forget that the Jets signed Aaron Rodgers to an ungodly contract.
It was ungodly to start. And then, you know what? I don't even want to hear it because I think he dropped like $60 million. So I'm very happy about that.
He injured himself in the first game of the season, I think.
It was 4 plays in, so very technically. Hold on 1 second because I'm pulling one other thing up because.
And then Geno Smith became a pretty decent NFL quarterback.
Yeah, like 9 years later. But by the way, I just wanted to get that point across. Wow,
so you're too good to order the signed copy from my website. Okay.
I wanted to get this. I'm going to order both. I have to buy you a new Xbox. But yes, everyone go find Dave online, buy his books, help him get a new house and Xbox. Mostly his wife a new house. She deserves it. And,
she deserves it. She did a lot. She's a trooper. She's a trooper.
But thank you very much for coming, and I appreciate it very much. I'll be talking to you probably in 13 seconds in
all right.
the other place. But thanks for coming, and thanks for everyone in the chat for joining. And be sure to follow us on YouTube and Spotify. We'll be up tomorrow morning. And have a good night, everyone. Talk to you later, buddy.